Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CavsHQ Happy Hour. Is presented by Budweiser. John and Rafa, great to have you with us. Some news, Rafa, over the last couple of days, apparently based upon the fact that you will be taking him to some new restaurants in Miami. Andre Drummond has announced that he's opted in. He'll be a Cavalier next year.
I just need to know which restaurant he's going to so I can get a job there before we go there. So I can sit him on a table and say, I'll be right back, and then come back take the order.
$1,000 tip, $1,000 tip by Andre. So, hey, he's staying with the Cavs next year. No real surprise there, Rafa, on a number of different levels. I think Andre was happy here. I think he's excited to remain with the Cavaliers. But when you look across the league, considering the landscape next year, the uncertainty regarding the cap, I don't think any player with a player option going into next year is going to decline. If you ask me, I think each and every one is going to opt in for next season. So not a huge surprise. Great to have Andre aboard for next year.
Great to have him aboard. And I know you and I always talked about when we see players on other teams that we really don't get a chance to say much to them, and they look different or feel different once we get to know them or what, you know, the human side. And that's another case now with Andre Drummond. We've been seeing him with Detroit all these years and you know, just this big impulsive figure on and off the court. We never really got to had a chance to get to know Andre as a person. He's a big kid. He's a really good guy. He loves Cleveland, and I think that's a great thing. He wants to be with us, and for us, for what we have seen, believe it or not, we have talked about this again, only 8 games by Andre Drummond with the Cavalier uniform. I can't wait to see what a whole season would look like with him in the middle.
Isn't it interesting how players in the Cavs division you learn not to like? 4 times a season, like Andre Drummond, you think, you know, there's no way I'd like that guy. Not that he was in the division, but guys, who would you say, Rafa, out of your experience here with the Cavs, are the guys where you saw them for a different team and you thought one thing, but when they got here, completely different? The two I always start with: Jordan Clarkson. You meet Jordan and you can't believe he's so multi-dimensional. There's so many things about Jordan Clarkson. Obviously, you never know, and that's true about a lot of different players. But Clarkson's one who struck me as somebody who was a lot different than what he seems when you see him on TV. And Big Perk, Kendrick Perkins, even though he was only here for a cup of coffee, man alive. You look at Perk on TV, you think you're almost through the TV, and he's, you know, a gentle giant in person. I lead off with those two.
I have two. Not that I didn't like them before, but at least I function in a way that I tend to not like players that don't play for my team. I don't root for anybody that don't play for my team. I don't care how good they are. But J.R. Smith is somebody that I got to know who he really was. And I got to love him. My favorite guy. Is a great human being, a sweetheart, and you realize all the stuff of the baggage that he carried, not to most of it to fault of his own or things he had done on the court. But as a person, as a human being, I think it's just another person that you get to meet. And also Jay Crowder. You know, Jay Crowder was always in these battles with the Celtics when he was with the Celtics. And then when he came, you realize what a different person he was, you know, once you get to know him. So I think it works with everybody, John. When you get to spend time with people, you know, we get to ride buses, we get to get on a plane sometimes, even share meals. And it's amazing to see how the perception is so different to the reality.
But the experiment continued this year with Crowder when he went back to Memphis, and then he got into it with Thompson. And then I started thinking, I don't know if I really like this
anymore.
And hey, how about JR? I mean, the news just a day or two ago, Avery Bradley is not going to Orlando. That opens up a roster spot for LA. It was widely reported that J.R. Smith is the favorite to step into that spot. J.R. and LeBron reunited. I mean, as if, you know, the Lakers weren't, you know, must-see TV already, as one of the favorites, if not the favorite in the West, maybe the favorite in the entire NBA. Throw JR into the mix. I don't know if he's going to be a rotation player, Rafa, but interesting things out on the West Coast.
I can see LeBron doing that kick-out pass at least 3-4 times per game when JR is in the game. And I would think that they will leave him a little open at the beginning just to see what Swish had to offer. But you can't root against them, against a guy like J.R. Smith. I mean, you know he's going to be putting it in the basket, and we'll see what comes out of it. I just want him to start playing. I want to see some basketball, as soon as possible.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Great show. Campy Russell, Cavs legend, will be joining us to talk about the restart. And, already we're seeing some guys, COVID continues to do its thing. Even within the NBA, we're seeing new cases emerge, at least publicly, about different players on different teams being affected who they are going to go on and continue to play in Orlando after they quarantine. But there's a lot going on logistically. I mean, of course, to try to get a league going again. We've seen other leagues in other countries try and fail to get back on the floor. They've, we've seen the process from the inside, Rafa. I mean, they have been working on this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and with all the different possibilities and things that might go wrong and this and that. And you almost just keep your fingers crossed that, goodness, I hope that this works. I hope there aren't any setbacks. I hope nothing happens. I hope the bubble plan is effective. But who knows, man, there's so many unknowns right now. I'm with you. I can't wait. I hope to see basketball, and a lot of it, really soon. But I think we have to keep our fingers crossed. We're going to talk about this with Campy as we roll along. Keep our fingers crossed that it works. And we do have a conclusion to this season, albeit one that was shortened, and albeit the one that was different than any other NBA season before it.
From what I can see and from what I've been living here in South Florida, John, the bubble is going to be a big team effort. We have gone from the hashtag of stay at home to the hashtag of be responsible and wear your mask. And this wasn't just a bell that rang and it's like time to go out for recess. And the bubble was chosen in Florida because it was one of the first states to open and declare sports essential. But since a lot has changed, Florida has become probably the new ground zero of the COVID outbreak, and hopefully they can actually manage. But then again, a lot is going to have to do with what the players do once they're in the bubble. How much do they want to be responsible? How much do they want to really care for everybody else? And how much they want to give us the show that we all been expecting. But let's hope for the best. And let's hope that the end of July comes here as soon as possible so we can see some basketball.
Yeah, a lot is on the players. Some are worried about, outside influences, people having to work, inside the bubble. So a lot to think about. Let's get Campy Russell's view on this. Let's bring in Camp right now. And here he is, our featured guest of the show, none other than Cavalier legend, Campy Russell. Campy, it is always good to see you. You look like you're enjoying the outdoors there.
Yes, I am enjoying the outdoors. I finally had a chance to come back to Michigan for a little bit to visit my family, as well as to visit my sisters. One is 91 years old, the other one is 80, and I just want to make sure that they're doing well. And it's always good to come back home to Pontiac, Michigan.
Very nice.
God bless them, man. I thought you were at the 19th hole or the 8th, at the clubhouse.
No, it's not that. I did that last night.
Well, best wishes to the family, Cam. That's great. We were talking about the NBA restart, and we wanted to get your take on what you think this might look like. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, the 22 teams heading down to Orlando. We've heard recently a number of the players opting out for various personal reasons. We've heard of more COVID cases reported among NBA players. It's obviously a difficult logistical situation to try to get basketball back on the floor and do so safely without being of the utmost importance. What are your general thoughts about what we might see, maybe any fears you might have, or your level of optimism about where the NBA is right now?
Well, for me, John, I think it's kind of hard for any of us to kind of give any kind of clear picture about this because no one really knows what's going on at this particular point as it relates to and I think you just said it best when you talked about some of the guys. I think they have until, yesterday, the 24th, I think, to either opt in or opt out in terms of playing. But in terms of what the league is doing, I believe that they're trying to do the best they can to put a product on the floor that will allow us to finish out the season, do the playoffs. But as you said, the biggest issue is how do you go back keeping everybody safe, and how do you create an environment where everybody feels comfortable about the environment. So I think that's really the biggest fight that they're going against at this particular point, is how do you keep everybody safe, comfortable, and feel good about what they're trying to do.
You know, Campy, you and John were talking about the players opting in or out of going to complete the season and then into the playoff. And it's hard to put into perspective because, A, we don't play, John and I never, you were in the league before, but just so there might be some people out there saying, it's so easy to say, oh, I will play or I wouldn't play.
Right.
What do you do in this case? I mean, I know it's more than just competing for the championship, especially in this case. I mean, it's life or death in some cases, and keeping your family healthy. But what do you think goes into the decision, and what would it take for you to make that decision?
Well, to me, in terms of the current guys, I think they really have to, search themselves and to make that kind of determination as an individual. And I think that is what our league has allowed them to do, is to make that decision as to whether they want to play or not. But I would say, as for me, I think I would be feeling the same way that they're feeling. Will I be safe? Will my family be safe? How is this going to play out? I mean, it's just so many unknowns. And I think, like anybody, when there's a lot of unknowns, you become uncomfortable and you don't feel good about it. So I think it's up to the league to try to create that environment that will keep them safe, number one. Number two, be very vigilant in terms of the testings or whatever things that they're going to do. Because at this particular point, I don't think any of us know what all the procedures are. But I think, without a doubt, our league is thinking about the players first.
Campy, I want to change gears just a little bit and give you personally some kudos. The Cavaliers, over the last couple of weeks, as everybody is familiar with, as we've talked about on this show, have been at the forefront of the racial injustice issues. They've given people the platform to be able to express their views. And you and the Legends have been fantastic. I mean, you've been fantastic, not just over the last couple of weeks, but really since you've been at the head of dealing with the Cavs Legends. Can you share with us just a little bit what's taken place with you guys over the last couple of weeks and what you've done on this front? It's been, from our perspective, I know I can speak for Rafa on this as well, it's been special to watch. Great job.
Well, John, for me, and I think even for all of our Legends, not just here locally, but throughout our entire organization, I just think that we believe in what's going on at this particular point. I believe that this is a opportunity for everybody to take fully advantage of dealing with the systemic, racism. And I think as we go forward, I think one of the things that we have to be conscious about all the time is that we cannot lose the advantage that we have at this particular point. We have a lot of people engaged into what's going on regarding this racism and the police and all the other things that goes along with this. So we have to keep everybody energized. We have to keep everybody engaged. And to me, I think that's going to be the difference, because the biggest thing for me is that you look at the amount of people that are out there, but not just, at one point it was all just Black folks that was out there. Now we have everybody who has had the opportunity to sit at home and to see all the things take place with on television, on the news, and they see it. And they're like, wow, is this what's going on out here? And to me, that's why everybody is engaged. And that is why it's important for us to keep this movement going forward in the right way. Because as we all know, that's what it's going to take. It's not going to take one group of people. It's going to take all of us to make these changes that we're talking about.
I think it's amazing, Campy, how I feel we're living in a very historic point, a moment, like a changing of direction moment in our lives. I was just learning about the Greensboro 4, on how that little protest at the Woolworth in Greensboro by 4 students just became such a movement. And the great thing about it that I learned is that it got everybody involved, like you say. And I hope that what the Cavs are doing is emulated by everybody else, and just for everybody to stay involved, to stay active, and not only that, but to just create a little change. Because a lot of times it's hard to say, when you look at the big picture and you see how much needs to change, it's hard for people to think they cannot affect it. But if we all continue to do what you've been saying, stay active and see what everybody else is doing out there, I think it's a wonderful thing that we're living through. Unfortunately, what created it is something that could have been avoided, but that's why I think it's even more important that this situation gets taken advantage of, about the way that people are getting involved and how we all want to affect a little change in everybody's life.
Well, to me, Rafa, I think the beauty of this whole event and this whole movement is it has become a worldwide movement.
Once again, thanks again, Campy, for all your work on that front as we continue on here on CavsHQ Happy Hour presented by Rafa. Have you, an extra person has popped up on our screen unexpectedly. Did you really want to be in this week's
showed up on his piano lesson?
Were you dying to be in this week's show, or what's going on?
Did I just kind of wander on all of a sudden?
We just got Zoom bombed in the middle of CavsHQ.
I know, and I interrupted Campy. I feel terrible. Campy, you want to go ahead? I'm sorry.
You hit the
that's
wrong
okay.
link, but you can stay, man.
Is that Joe?
Yeah.
Joe Gabriele? Oh,
it is
the one and only.
unexpectedly.
Ooh, I like it.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Campy. I talk to you guys all the time, though. It's great.
Yeah, you could. He got on to talk to you apparently, Campy. He doesn't have much interest in talking to us.
Well, I'm glad he got on because Joe and I have been spending some time together on the phone or through Zooms. And one of the things that we have talked about is how do we stay in touch with our former players and how do we keep our fans engaged with them? And Joe has stepped up big time in terms of helping me put those guys out on our platform by doing interviews. And Joe has done a great job of that. And we look forward to continue to grow that area because our fans want to know what's going on with our former players as well as our current players.
Yeah, I mean, and Campy, same to you. You've been so great just helping out with this, and we have to talk after this. I have one coming up with Mike Sanders, who was great.
Yes.
One of the key players from the great teams of the late 80s, early 90s. He had some great stories. Anderson Varejao was great. So I'm with you, Campy. I want to build this family of Cavaliers and keep all the legends engaged and just build this family. And one day these guys, these young guys, are going to be these guys down the road. You know, they're going to be legends. They're going to be coming back. So it's really cool.
See that, Rafa? The Zoom bomb worked out perfectly. These two segued right into something.
I've been reading this Where Are They Now? Clips that amazing that Joe G has been doing. I was wondering, like, I know we're still here, but maybe like a Where is Rafa and John now during the pandemic? A good clip, you know?
Well, how about this? How about this? Why not do a story about where they come from?
Yeah.
You know? Not where they are now, but where'd you come from?
Where are they going?
Where were they then?
Yeah, where were they then? Right, exactly.
John and Rafa, Where Are They Now does not strike me as being a highly read article, Joseph. I'd probably save the word. Hey, you always come with something. That's kind of our thing when you are actually invited onto the show, unlike this week. But since you're here and since you're always in the midst of Cavalier things, Cavalier, you're writing your articles and everything else, do you have anything you'd like to bring to us, considering that we have legend Campy Russell on the show?
Well, I just happened to wander onto the set, and I just happened to have pick'ems for this week.
Right.
Amazing.
So, and they were like right in my pocket. So,
right.
Do you guys want to do some pick'ems?
Yeah, let's do pick'em. Campy,
okay.
You'll like this. Go ahead.
Okay, Campy, all we're doing is it's self-explanatory. We're picking them.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Second best commissioner in pro sports. Bettman,
Wow.
Roger Goodell, or I guess Rob Manfred. Second best. We know we got the best.
I'll start.
It's got to be Bettman I think almost by elimination. I think Gary Bettman's done a nice job. I've been in the NHL previously. I like Bettman. I don't want to sit here and bash either of the other two, but we've seen what baseball's been going through. Ball's had its issues over the last couple of seasons. So I think, again, without naming names, the other two, I'm going to pick Gary Bettman as the second best, only to Adam Silver, number one in the NBA.
Happy?
Well, you know something? I can't go with the guy that's plays with the oblong football. So I'll go with the other guy, which is baseball.
All right.
Well, for sure, you know, one of the things that makes Adam Silver the best at this is the fact that he has shown how union and league can actually come together, get themselves together in a table and come up with something that is best for the sport and for everybody. Like Campy was just saying, Silver has been looking out for our players and the health and of our fans as well. Baseball, I'm getting to the point that I don't miss it anymore because I don't understand the battling that is going on between 60 games or 70 games. And then, you know, I've been with my mom to the market. It's like, how about 65? And everybody's, you know, half and half. Hockey, I don't know much. I love my Canadians, but I don't know much. So I'm going to pick Chong Han, who is the commissioner of the Korean Baseball League. He's the first guy that got the game back on. So let's give him second best commissioner that we know about.
Okay, we're moving on to most improved Cavalier throughout the season. It is either, these are the two choices I'm going to give you, Larry Nance Jr. or Kevin Porter Jr. Who improved most from the beginning to where we ended up?
Go ahead, Camp. You go first.
Well, as much as I love Larry Nance Jr.'s game, I'm going to go with Kevin Porter Jr. And the reason why, when you talk about Kevin Porter, here's a guy that, for the most part, nobody even thought he was going to be on the team roster. They thought he was going to go to the G League. Now, here's a guy who was destined to go to the G League, ended up being a significant player on our basketball team. And we saw how he grew his game. He's just so spectacular in terms of his athleticism, his overall skill set, his toughness, his ability to guard, his ability to make plays. I mean, he's a guy, to me, that I believe is going to be a superstar in our league. And I know I'm going way ahead of myself in terms of that, but I like his skill set and his talent and what he brings to our basketball team. Plus, he can play the one position, which is the point guard. He can play the two. He can play the three. He's an all-purpose player. Not to take anything away from Larry Nance Jr., but I'm going to go with Kevin Porter Jr. because just what he brings to this basketball team and how he has grown his game. But more importantly, how Coach Bickerstaff have worked with him and has put him on the right track to be successful, not only for our basketball team, but for himself.
And to add what Campy said, let's remember it's a 19-year-old kid who at times during the season was asking to guard the other team's best player.
Yeah.
I mean, that's uncommon. That doesn't happen a whole heck of a lot of times. I was reading something from, this wasn't a national report, nothing coming from the Cavs. It was from other teams suggesting potential trades during the offseason with other teams. One happened to be the Cavs. And I'm reading from a reporter saying, well, this team could trade these people to the Cavs and throw in Kevin Porter. There's no throwing in Kevin Porter from the Cavs perspective. I'm like, that just blew the whole article up in terms of credibility. I'm like, oh, hold on here. So I mean, he obviously an important force in his rookie season, and man, potentially somebody who could be a big part of this team for years to come. Rob,
I agree with the pick by John and Campy, but I also think it's a very unfair pick to Larry Nance Jr. because the ability for KPJ to get better and improve it on a daily basis is so much faster than what Larry Nance. And this is not to say that Larry Nance hasn't done a great job becoming a leader on the court and off the court. I think for these young guys that he's been showing them the work ethic that needs to be had in the NBA and the time that you need to put in. But KPJ is a guy that came in here with some kind of luggage, but having a little problem in college and people wondering what the Cavs were doing. And at the end of the day, and we now know that the Cavs picked the right Kevin Porter, at the draft, and for sure KPJ runs with it.
Okay.
Well,
Joseph, we have
well, just
Joe,
before you
we
go
have
there,
Go ahead, Cam.
just one quick thought here about Larry Nance Jr.
Mhm.
To me, I just think Larry Nance Jr. is just as versatile as KPJ. There's no question about that. But the thing I like about Larry Nance is his overall abilities as well. Plus, I believe he has the ability to play the small forward, the power forward, and we have seen him play the center position as well. So he's a multifaceted guy. And to me, the more guys like that you have on your team, the better your team can be and more versatile your basketball team can be.
The only bad thing about Larry Nance that he got Tristan Thompson and Andre Drummond wanting to shoot the three after they saw what he was doing.
All right, let's
Joe,
go.
yeah, Joe, we have time for one more, or maybe two quick ones if you got.
Ooh. Oh man. Okay. Well,
Let's go two. Let's do two more.
let's stay in the NBA then, real quick. Which LA team goes farther once we start back in the bubble? Clips or the Lakers?
Wow. Well, for me, I got to go with the Clippers. You know, yes, the Los Angeles Lakers have LeBron James and Davis and all those guys. But to me, I think the difference is going to be which team has the overall toughness. Toughness. Let me say it again, toughness. And I believe it's the Clippers because it all starts with their coach, Doc Rivers. He is a guy that brings a lot of toughness. He demands toughness. He draft guys. He plays guys based on their toughness. And you look at the length, the athleticism, the toughness that this Clipper team has. Plus, they have one of the best guys, if not the best guy, in the league in terms of Kawhi Leonard. Then you add Paul George to that mix, Lou Williams. You just go down their lineup, and all you see is toughness, guys that put it all on the floor every single night. So I'm going with the Clippers.
Go ahead, Rafa.
I'm going with the team that picks J.R. Smith, but I agree with that. I think the depth of the Clippers in the bench, and also the fact that Doc Rivers and T. Lue with tons of experience, and
Yep.
I don't care what anybody says, coaching has a lot to do when it comes to the playoff, when it comes to 7-game series, when it comes to exploiting what the other team can be exploited with, or defending yourself with the weapons of the other team. And I think the Clippers have the edge there.
Well, I'll say this. Those, to me, are easily the top two teams in the NBA. All right? I mean, I know the East. I know what Milwaukee's done during the regular season. I know Boston was surging. Toronto's been surprising to a lot of teams. But to me, head and shoulders, the two LA teams above anybody else, the East and the West. I mean, Denver's got a nice young team. But to think that Denver could knock off either of those teams in the playoffs, let alone one after the other to get to the NBA Finals, just seems a little too far-fetched. Houston's a little small. I'm not sure Utah has any, has the ability to beat either of those teams. So I think that matchup, presumably in the Western Conference Final between the two LA teams, likely is going to determine the winner. I agree with you, Campy. If it's based purely on toughness, I like the Clippers. Man, the Lakers have some talent. That is going to be a wild, wild, fun series. Those two teams meet. Something to take into account, though, guys. I mean, we don't know. You know how during the regular season, normally, no NBA teams playing the same in October as they are in December, as they are in February, as they are in April. I mean, things evolve over the course of the season. Huge question coming back here is we don't know how any team's going to play. I mean, I think there are going to be some surprises of teams that were playing great suddenly just can't get it back together once they're, in the bubble and then on into the playoffs. There's so much uncertainty, so much unknown. I think that's going to be a big part of what we see in the playoffs. You take a team like Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia is playing pretty terrible basketball at the break, struggling on the road, everything else. But boy, they're talented. They have the pieces. What if they get it together coming into Orlando, and then they're suddenly a player in the Eastern Conference when they're sitting around 6th or 7th right now in the standings? So I think we're going to find out a lot over the first couple of weeks in terms of which teams have remained in shape, which teams look ready to go, and that could be a lot different in terms of the landscape than what we saw when we left off in March.
That's a good point, John. That's an excellent point.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more or no?
Yeah, we do.
Let's do a
One or
quick.
two, but we're having fun. Roll along. Go ahead.
All right. We're going to come off the grid of basketball a little bit here. Campy, I know Jones is a vegan. Are you a carnivore?
Well, I eat what I want to eat based upon how I feel. You know something? And the reason why I do that, it has a lot to do with my dad. My dad ate some of everything based upon how he felt.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, the good news is he lived until he was 98 years old. So I'm going to try to follow that pattern.
Okay, that's a good answer. So multiple choice, the pick'em is you have to give up one animal meat for the rest of your life. Is it pork? Is it beef? Or is it poultry or chicken, turkey? Beef for Rafa?
I have no problem giving up beef.
Really? A hamburger, a steak?
Yeah, but it does no good for me. Again, I'm going back to what Campy said. I not only eat what I feel like eating, but I also eat what makes me feel good. And for sure, meat it hasn't been good to me. I love it. Trust me, I would love a sirloin steak or a burger, but it's not good for me. So I'll give up beef and stay with my chickens and the pork.
Okay, John.
Well, for somebody who bases 90% of his diet on chicken wings and burgers, I think I'm going to have to go with pork. Just because I like the other two better. I'm glad you didn't ask us beverage options either. You would have ruined my entire next couple of decades. No, I'd probably opt for pork. Camp, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to stick to what I said from the onset. My dad ate all of that, you know. So, again, he lived until he was 98 years old. So I'm not giving up anything. I'm just going to carry on and continue and just understand and hope that some of the DNA that my dad has in him, that I have it as well as the rest of my brothers and sisters. Because just give you an example about that, I have a sister, 91 years old. She eats everything. So, hey, I'm going to stick to that pattern.
Give me my beef back.
Joseph, thank you. Great job. Campy, always a pleasure to catch up with you. We appreciate your insight on basketball and everything else. Final thoughts, Cam, for our fans here in Northeast Ohio as we head into the summer months and get ready for the NBA's restart, albeit without the Cavaliers.
Well, I think my final thought would be this. You know, this pandemic hasn't gone away. And I think we still have to be vigilant in that respect in terms of the distances, you know, wearing your mask, continue to wash your hands and just keep yourself as clean as possible. Then the second thing would be definitely this systemic racism is huge out here. It has hurt a lot of people for hundreds of years. And we're moving in the right direction. So we have to keep everybody engaged worldwide. And the good news is they are engaged, but we have to continue that because this systemic racism have to go because it's impacting too many different things in our world.
Just give everybody the same chance from the beginning. I think if we, like, again, going back to what I was saying before, there's so much that needs to change. In my case, just give everybody a chance to the same education so everybody can be exposed to the same things, so everybody can have the same opportunity to put in the work and pick up the fruit. So that would be my case. And everybody, Campy, awesome job. Keep doing what you're doing and stay active, everybody. Do something to affect a little change in this world.
I have to stay active because I've always looked at this just like the Cavs motto in some respect. You know, we are the day, meaning that no matter who we are, we're part of that. So we have to be a part of this and continue to be that way.
Thank you, Campy. Certainly appreciate it. For our featured guest, Campy Russell. For our Zoom bomber, Joe Gabriele, Rafa Hernandez-Brito. I'm John Michael. Until next time, thanks for joining us on CavsHQ Happy Hour, presented by Budweiser.
Bud.
And if we ever lose our way, remember who we are today.